Holla, holla. Hustle hard. We yours truly, George Billionaire. Monday, it's about that time to get going. And today, so many of us were born in a not so good environment. And today's topic, your origins do not determine where you end up. The most important thing that's going to define and dictate where you end up is the action you take. People grew up in the rural areas. People grew up without a mother, a father, without finance, capital, without education. But that doesn't determine where you end up. The action you deliberately take determines where you end up. So no more excuses, but now more action regarding where we want to end up. I believe in you. I believe in myself. And I believe that there's a super extraordinary gift, talent, business, product, service that lies inside you. And only when you begin to act upon that thing, you will begin to see and live and have so many things that you never thought you would have. Yo, tune in, watch this video until the end. Make sure you press that like button, subscribe, and make sure you are part of this amazing Hustle Hard family with yours truly, George Billionaire. I've told you once, twice, 3 times, 4, 10 times, 1,000 times. Hanging around with me is contagious because I will make you change your mindset so that you begin to believe in yourself that all things are possible. All things, not some, but all things are possible to he who believes. Success is an inside job and it begins with you. You have to start seeing yourself as a success, and then you will truly become a success. Let's go.
Marani's Heartbeat, and now we get into what we call Hustle Hard with George Billionaire, and we are talking about something very interesting. I feel like, George, ever since I started talking to you, this is something you're so passionate about from the very first time we started talking, because you just mentioned how over and over again, you literally mentioned how where you come from doesn't have to determine the kind of future that you need to have, that you're supposed to have. And our topic today is our destiny is not determined by our actions, determined by our actions, not by our origins. And we get into the conversation. Holla, holla.
Holla, holla.
It's your boy.
George Billionaire, and always a pleasure to be here on this amazing show where we are deliberately provoking, inspiring, and equipping people with the most important ingredient that people need to survive, and that is information.
Yeah.
Once you have information, you become different from others who don't have information. But for you to become extraordinary, which is different from everybody else, it's actually applying that information that you get into your life, into your business, into whatever it is that you're doing, and making that thing that you are doing flourish. So it's always good to be here, and I love coming. This is one of the ways I give back to people, by coming to speak. I want to be remembered for that guy who provoked many to going the journey less traveled, provoking many to start a side hustle, provoking many to believe that, wait a minute, it is possible. If George did it, I too can do it. I can do it as well. So it's important that we are here on this show. If you are not provoked by us, if you're not inspired, and if you're not equipped, this is not your place. And if you want to be somebody who is different, keep hanging around with us here on Capital 100.4 FM, because if you keep hanging around with us, you're not going to remain ordinary. You will definitely become an extraordinary being. And I love after I leave the show, there are people who text me, people who call me. I bump into people who tell me, George, thank you. I've been listening, I've been tuned into the show ever since you started. This is mentorship, power, excellence. I'm far away, I'm not in the country, but your words of encouragement always give me a little hope when I was just about to give up. And that's the essence of what we're trying to create. We want to be here to make an impact to many people, so that people actually realize, wait, these tough times are not just happening to me. They've happened to everybody who is deemed successful and great. But I should weather the storm. I should go through it. I shouldn't sit down. Whatever you can go through, you grow through. So it's important that this is our message on Hustle Hard, to say, everybody out there, there's a champion inside you. No matter the weather, the forecast, the economy, the hardships, I know that there is a champion inside you. I know that there is a product, there is a business, there is a solution. There's something you can do that can exchange money to come your way with something you're good at. You could be a voiceover artist. You could be a makeup artist. You could be selling in that mall right at the back where you think nobody's going to come. But you have to at least do something. And sooner than later, you will achieve what a lot deem is success and financial freedom.
I love what you said. What you go through, you grow through. And our destiny is determined. I think I will say this so many times. Every time I've had conversations with you just constantly remind us that, okay, yeah, you're coming from a poor background, but that doesn't have to be your destination or the end of your road. And this phrase emphasizes that an individual's future and success are shaped by their choices and actions rather than their background. And you also, besides background, you also talk about how even the state of the country is not even supposed to determine the kind of future that you are supposed to have. And I want to know, how can I reflect as a listener or as myself? How can I reflect on my current life circumstances and identify areas where my actions are shaping my destiny?
One of the things with life, people want to blame their upbringing. True. So I decided to talk about this today because there are so many people who came from a not so good background. But if you look at the lives they're living today, it was not by accident. It was a deliberate choice and certain actional steps taken that changed their trajectory of life. Precious. Yeah. I'm saying, if you want to become a person of significance, it may be great you went to an A school, you didn't go to the best school, you never went to university, etc. Life happens to all of us. But in order for you to become great, I've seen, and I'm privileged today to be speaking about some people who I've seen who started off in not such a good place. And a lot of people may not know, there's a gentleman here in the country of Zimbabwe by the name Clive Chisenya. There's a YouTube video I did with him where he talks about, he's the founder of Steelmate, one of the biggest steel suppliers in the country. If you find out where he started, he used to sell kumpedzanamo. That was his very first. He lost his mother at a very early age. His mother was struck by lightning. Very devastating. But if you look at the hustle that he went through, for him now to be where he is was a process of saying, you know what, I may have come from a poor background. He grew up with aunties, he grew up with so many families. And sometimes, when you're staying with relatives, it's not the best of environments. But that hardship motivated him to want the better life. And if you look him up today, he's one of the most seasoned entrepreneurs here in the country of Zimbabwe. I could go on and talk about Dr. Philip Chiangwa, who grew up in Chegutu, selling maize meal. His mom made him become an entrepreneur at a young age because they couldn't fend for themselves, so the mom had to do this, that, and the other. The things that happened to him at an earlier stage in his life have made him become who he is today because he deliberately got sick and tired of the lifestyle he grew up with. And this is why we call him flamboyant, Phil. But the life he has was a deliberate choice he chose to have. I could go on and talk about Zodwa Mkandla, who grew up in Bulawayo, deep rural areas. Same thing. There is something about people that they don't understand. Kuti wait, Kwandakava does not determine where I end up. She grew up poverty, not such a good lifestyle, but because at one point in time, she was like, wait, money is in Harare, let me go. And there's also a video about her, and you can see that also on my YouTube channel. There's a lot. I can mention Dr. Nigel Chanakira, who grew up in Highfields. Right? I grew up in Glenora. There's something about Highfield is now Glenora. right? So big shout out to Highfields and Glenora people. But there's something about people who grew up in not the best environments, but they took a deliberate choice. Kwandaka Vogu does not have to determine where I end up. And this is the key thing with life. I could go on. A lot of people know Ken Sharp.
Yeah.
Ken Sharp grew up on a farm. A lot of people see Ken Sharp, West Properties, now doing all these things and building all this. But if you look at the background, where he originated from and where people are, people don't get to see how the story began. They only see the end. And this is what I'm trying to tell people today, that there are many. I could go down the list. I could talk about Alec Macheso, right? He also grew up not having parents, stayed with Anasekuru, came into town. He was playing band, this, that, and the other, and now household name. But he was also an individual who got tired of the normal status quo, and he wanted to be great. So our past does not determine our future. If you grew up in the village, it does not determine that you're going to be poor.
True.
It doesn't. But that is deliberately done by people who are going to take deliberate steps and actions. I can talk also about Scott Sakupwanya. I think we saw his interview recently. He was a garden boy. There's something about people, they need to understand this. He began as a garden boy. He was washing bikes at Donnybrook. He was serving them. He was promoted. He became a mine manager, etc. All of this was never deemed to think, wait a minute, one time this guy is actually going to be who he is today. And now if you look, it's amazing what life does. He used to wash the motorbikes at Donnybrook back in the day, but now he's running that whole thing. But it's all because somebody got sick and tired of being the ordinary person, but they had to go through the process. So in this life we live, we need to understand that we only get to live the life that we are willing and want to live because of the actions we take. Without taking steps, like we tell you here every single Monday, if you don't start something, uchafushirwa, uine idea yako, uine business yako.
Yeah, so many ideas at the graveyard. Right?
That's it.
Yeah.
The richest place on planet Earth is the graveyard, because many people did not take action. They heard this exact same message we're talking to everybody about right now, but they did not take the steps to actually start. They had bigger excuses. And here in Zimbabwe, everybody's got an excuse. Everybody's pointing at somebody.
True.
But the true person you should be pointing at is the person who you're looking at in the mirror. Because if you keep blaming, I don't know about anybody who blamed somebody else to success and actually became a success. But in this lifetime, especially in this day and age, there's so many things happening quickly. And uchasara, uramba wori just where you are, and everybody else is progressing whilst you're complaining. You're complaining about business is not okay. By the way, we all are in the same economy. And if you fail to adapt to change, you're going to die and be forgotten soon. But if you're willing to be somebody who's going to take a deliberate action, like the names I mentioned and many more people who are great successful people in this country and abroad, you have to take deliberate steps in order for you to become great. But many, as always, suffer from excusatitis. They want to blame everybody. I didn't go to university. I'm one person myself from Glenora, living in a 2-bedroom house. My father took us to good schools, but we didn't have a good lifestyle. We were deemed just an average family. But had I chose to be born, bred, and die in that place, that's a choice. But because of exposure, one of the greatest things my father and mother did, especially for me and my siblings, was to take us to a place that made us feel uncomfortable. When you got back home, you were like, Iwe, there are others. I would go to my friends' houses and see, wow, that's their parents' bedroom. That bedroom is the size of our whole house. Wow, they've got 2-3 cars. Wow, they've got a nice this, that, and the other. And to me, that exposure provoked me and actually made me think that, wait a minute, these people grew up in Chitungwiza. I grew up in Glenora. If they did it, surely I also can do it. And this is the thing with life. All those great people who we read about today are simply action-oriented people. Now we're already in the month of March. January, February, March. Already. Time is flying. The only things that are not moving are things that are happening to you. Others are progressing. Take a look outside wherever you are. There's a building being built next door. You're complaining that there's no money, but there are others who are making a plan, who are taking action to wake up early, while all you can do is to complain, is to murmur, is to be so invested in politics, murmuring and complaining. Those things will never add anything to your life until you make a deliberate choice about progressing in your life. There are people years back who were waiting for elections to happen. There were people who were waiting for Congress to happen. There were people who were waiting for summer to come. But they didn't do anything even when these things came. And that time, which is given to all of us in the same quantity, came and went. But financially, there's no progression in your life. The worst thing that can ever happen to people today, I've said this before, the worst thing that can happen in your life is for you to be at the exact same place next year this time, and nothing else changing other than your age. Nothing else. But if you decide today to say, you know what? Kusiri kufande kupi. That was my mother's favorite quote. Let me just do it. Let me try. Because in this life that we live, those who try will always have or learn or experience something than those who never tried. I love the example in the Bible. Peter, the two people recorded on earth who walked on water. There was Jesus and Peter.
Yeah.
And Peter only walked on water because he asked and he tried. The others, who are like the others listening today, will be like, George, isusu takangotemba our job. We are happy with just our job. But there are others who will say, listen, let me step outside the boat. Let me try this thing. Out of that trying, you learn something. You'll do and have what the majority don't have, because you deliberately took an actional step towards to do something. And that is going to be one of our greatest falls on planet Earth. Because when Jesus left, he said, I'm going to leave you a helper. Right?
And you do greater works.
You do greater.
Yeah.
The Bible says, do business until I come. He didn't say just go and have a job. He said go and do business until I come. But majority of us are just thinking our job is doing that. But when we leave this earth and we go and we are replayed that video of potentially what we could have, you will dread that I wish I started. I die ndakangotanga, and die we know kutaura kwe munhu asiri action oriented. But you have to do something, because this life is moving too fast. And there are many listening to me today who rely so much on their job. But your job is not 100% guaranteed. I keep saying this to people. I was talking when I traveled recently to Bulawayo. There was a lady who used to work for an NGO, and her job went after the directive that was put, and now she's an driver. And she's saying, it's amazing how now that I'm doing this for myself, I'm actually making a lot more, and I've got a lot more time, and I'm meeting a lot more people like you, and I'm actually sharing my ideas, and I'm now thinking entrepreneur. But for 5-6 years I was closed in to just, I wake up 8, we're working in the rural areas, it's uncomfortable. But now she's doing that. She started a chicken business behind the yard. She's thinking entrepreneur because she's seen that, wait a minute, I can't rely on just a job. And all these names, there's nothing wrong with a job. I used to work before I started my own journey. But there's a time and a season for everything. But the only thing that differentiates you to me is what you want in life. Because ordinary people, there are many of. But extraordinary people are people who are willing to take an extra step, and they want better and bigger things. I know to everybody listening or watching us today, you do have things that you desire and want. But those things you will never have until you take the action or steps towards getting them. And success does not happen overnight. It doesn't. It's like planting a tree. The tree outside did not grow in 6 months.
That is true.
It took 5-10 years of consistency until it becomes what it is. And that's the same thing with whatever it is regarding business or whatever you want to become great at. It takes time for you to become a great. For Jah Prayzah to be where he is, it's taken years, but he's focused on that one craft and he's mastered it. And look at it now, it's paying fruit. The same with business. With Pro Air, we've been there 12, 13 years. The first years it wasn't like this. People barely knew us. But now we've become a household name in the air conditioning fraternity, and we're doing work across board. It takes time, but it takes action for you to get to where others are not getting. People are so comfortable. I cannot emphasize this to the pausers. I urge people to get outside the comfort zone. I'm not here to motivate people to just be like, wow, George is always inspiring and motivating. But I want people who deliberately take action and actually take self-responsibility of their own lives. Because you are only accountable at the end of your life for the life that you lived. And you chose deliberately staying in that location for that long. You could have decided to change. It meant you had to change some of the things that you're doing. Had I remained working Just Precious in 2012, where I used to work, I can guarantee you, had I not started this thing that I started, I wouldn't be talking to people today. I would have never accomplished and amassed so many things in my life. I would have never been recognized and been given awards or even met the president. I wouldn't have. But because of the deliberate steps I took, now when I arrive, people acknowledge me differently because I deliberately said, I want to start this journey. And I've stayed true with it for years. I tell people this, when your name is mentioned, what is the first thing that comes to people's minds? When your name is mentioned. I know if I mention Dr. Strive Masiwa, Philip Mataranyika, Steve Jobs, Cristiano Ronaldo, Amai Rebecca Chisamba, George Billionaire, any name that I mention, it associates you with something that those people do. This is one thing that we should strive as individuals and directly towards taking action to that. What are you taking action or doing that when your name is mentioned, people think this? People shouldn't just associate you with, that's that guy who loves that soccer team. That's that guy who likes to go drinking on that weekend. That's that guy, call this guy. We want your name to be associated with something that directly gives you a stream of income. When your name is mentioned, they should be like, all right, you mean George? No, that's that aircon guy. Oh, you mean, am I Dr. Rebecca Chisamba? Yes, the talk show host. Oh, you mean Scott Sakupwanya? Oh, that's that guy who does gold in Scotland and this, that, and the other. Your name should be relevant with what you are deliberately doing. But when you don't have that as yet, you've got a lot of work to do. You have to now start taking actionable steps. When you mention Alec Macheso, you know the Sungura King. Oliver Mtukudzi, you know. When we talk about wedding planners, you know. When you talk about buying a car at this garage, you know. They are makeup artists. The list can go on. But what have you deliberately taken action to? That when something that involves money, people think about you. This is one thing that we really need to focus on, because where we came from is the past. Now what we need to focus on is the future. Where are we going? What am I deliberately doing for me to become a pro at something that when people think of a product or service that I offer, my name should be the one mentioned. And all of that begins by taking action.
So there are questions on the WhatsApp platform, and somebody says, you mentioned earlier that it's very important for us to look at the people that have made it in life. I want to understand that. What about me? I struggle with understanding that everybody has a past, to the point that I put so much pressure on myself. So how do I cultivate a growth mindset and develop resilience in the face of obstacles or setbacks?
I like that. Brilliant question. Life is about what you make it. And if ever you're going to become somebody who's great, I've said this before, success leaves clues. Hang around success and you will learn a lot about success. I cannot emphasize there are some great people who, just by seeing their habits, what they do without them talking, I can tell that this person is focused. I love the fact that we all know Dr. Philip Chiangwa. I don't know of any other hardworking man who, up until now, 7 a.m. is in the office. And that's a lifestyle. That's just who he is. And when you see that, even as an entrepreneur, you imagine he's the first one in and sometimes the last one out. It shows you that no, success does not just happen. There's a lot of hard work behind the scenes. And when you see that as an entrepreneur, to be the first one in the office and the last one out, it shows how passionate and you're dedicated towards something. So I'll tell that person that study successful people. This generation we are in today is lazy. They they think as quickly as they can download something, they don't have to sit down and have a conversation with somebody. They think, no, I know it all, I can just Google it or find it on, But there are certain things that you will get from seeing, going and learning. My favorite verse in the Bible, after Proverbs 3, verse 5 to 10, is Matthew 7, verse 7, which says, and this is the greatest secret to anybody listening, if you want to be great in life, that verse says, ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be open. So if you are somebody who wants to become successful, do those 3 things alone. Ask successful people. Don't ask anybody. Deliberately go and find somebody who is great at something. If it's Jah Praiser, if it's whoever it is, anybody, if it's a pastor, if it's an athlete, whatever they did for them to become successful is the same thing you need to do, only that in your trade. Apply the same principles. Because success has universal principles. If it means working harder than everybody else, discipline, sacrifice, eating healthy, living healthy, associating with people, the principles are the same. But you have to ask, seek, and keep knocking, and you will become whatever it is you want and deem to be.
All right, another question over here. Tapuya says, how can I recognize and challenge negative self-talk or limiting beliefs that may be holding me back from getting to my destination?
You remind me so much about a time way back when I grew up. I was in the last class at school in Set 5. They called us the NHS, the No Hope Squad. We were told we won't make it in life because we did not do well in school. But gone are those days. It's amazing to see that most of the guys who were in my class back then are tech gurus. They are geeks. They're coming up with apps. They are all successful. But all those guys who were up there having breakfast with the headmaster and deemed to be successful are not as successful as those guys they look down upon. So it may have been your father, your mother, your uncle, your spouse who told you all these negative things. You won't make it. Nobody has ever become an entrepreneur. Just focus on this. You have to have what is called the SFP, the self-fulfilling prophecy. You have to, from today, begin to learn kuzhisimbisa, positive self-talk. You have to decree and declare exactly what you see yourself as. It's not what people see you as that matters. It's who you see yourself. And when God created you and me, He deliberately knew there was something in you that the earth is going to need at this point in time. So you're not a mistake. Because biologically speaking, I don't want to get into biology, but all of us who are alive today were born winners. We swam that race and we won that race. So you have to begin to speak to yourself and affirm. There are many people who say, George billionaire, do you even have $1 billion? it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's how I see myself. And I'm a winner. I'm a champion. I'm the head and not the tail. I'm above and not beneath. I can do all things. These are self-fulfilling prophecies about me.
Yeah.
When you begin to speak to yourself like that and do not listen to the opinions of others, you begin to see you become a better person. So the most important voice you should listen to is the voice you speak of yourself. Don't be a person who speaks negatively about themselves. Never. Always be known as, he is always positive. And you begin to see positive mind. What follows are positive results.
All right, this is time for the news, and we'll catch George next week, Monday.